Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Jasodanandana Brajanaranjana Jasodanandana Brajanaranjana Jamunatira Vanachadi Jamunatira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Jasodanandana Brajanaranjana Jasodanandana Brajanaranjana Brajanaranjana Jamunatira Vanachadi Jamunatira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayo Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivijagacharya Astatara Sisi His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Gaur Premanandi Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya So once again we're going to Vrindavan through sound vibration. compliments of Vyasadeva and Shukadev Goswami and our whole disciplic succession, Srila Prabhupada, and a very delightful section. The Gopis sing of Kṛṣṇa as he wanders in the forest. We're reading this. It's text 9, 8 and 9 to 10 and 11. They're a group of 4 verses that go together. And text 9 is being referred to in a section we're going to read from. This is Jiva Goswami makes reference to this verse in the section of 10th canto, Draupadi meets the queens of Kṛṣṇa. That must have been nice. Draupadi meets the queens of Kṛṣṇa. So that the circumstance is the solar eclipse, and as was the custom, during the time of solar eclipse, the residents of Dwarka went to Kurukshetra, and the residents of Hastinapur went to Kurukshetra, and they met. They had heard a lot about each other, but now they're meeting one another. And the chapter begins, chapter 83, canto 10, begins with Draupadi speaking to 9 of Krishna's 16,100 queens. The 8 is, they were, the marriage of Krishna to those 8 was very special, unique. And then the 16,100, they were the result of the princesses that were captured by Bhaumasura, having taken over the kingdom of the kings. He usurped the princesses, their daughters, and put them in a prison. And Krishna rescued them. So Draupadi is speaking to one of them on behalf of all the others, and I'm going to read a little bit. It says we're headed for text 43, but before text 43 comes the reply, text 40, 108340, where Rohini, one of the 1,100 queens, is speaking on behalf of the rest. So in text 40 it reads, after killing Bhaumasura and his followers, the Lord found us in the demon's prison and could understand that we were daughters of the kings who Bhauma had defeated during his conquest of the earth. The Lord set us free, and because we had been constantly meditating upon his lotus feet, the source of liberation from all material entanglement, he agreed to marry us, though his every desire is already fulfilled. So she is speaking to Draupadi on behalf of the 9 queens, so the other 8 queens that of the 16,100 queens were being addressed. And 43, this is Rohini Devi speaking to Draupadi, says, we desire the same contact with the Supreme Lord's feet that the young women of Vraja, the cowherd boys, and even the Aborigine Pulinda women desire. The touch of the dust he leaves on the plants and grass as he tends his cows. So that's the verse, that's the point of focus. And in the BBT purport, it says like this, I'll just read. Rukmini and her 7 chief co-wives considered themselves so fortunate in their relationship with Kṛṣṇa as he appeared in Dwarka, that they did not especially desire to see him as he is in Vrindavan. But the 16,100 lesser queens, after hearing Uddhava describe Sri Radha's super excellent qualities, became attracted to touch the dust that falls from Krishna's feet onto the grass and plants of Vrindavan. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti indicates that some commentators give this as the reason why, after the Moshala Leela, the 16,000 queens were stolen from Arjuna on the road by Lord Krishna himself in the guise of 16,000 cowherds, who then took them away to Gokula. So in case you're not familiar with that pastime, the Moshala Leela refers to Krishna's departure. And after Krishna's departure, Arjuna understood his task was protecting the queens. And the queens desire to go to the place of protection in Hastinapur. So Arjuna was escorting them to Hastinapur. But in the course of escorting them to Hastinapur, some cowherd boys came, and they were marshalling the queens away. So Krishna, who had defeated so many soldiers, was unable to stop them. And that's something that we read in Canto 1, one of those chapters, where he comes back from Dwarka and informs Yudhisthira that the Pandavas, that Krishna has left this world. And he describes that he was defeated by cowherd men. I, Arjuna, who defeated so many soldiers, on Maharathi soldiers, generals, great warriors, was checked by cowherd men. And he understood that it's because Krishna invested him with power to be victorious in Kurukshetra, and Krishna had withdrawn that power, so he couldn't protect even against cowherd men, what to speak of great warriors. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is remarking that some commentators say that it was Krishna himself, in the guise of 16,000 cowherd boys, that marshaled the Gopīs away and took them to Vrindavan. It's a little complicated. There's different versions also, so don't be surprised when you hear a different version, because there are different versions. And when they reached, those of you that have gone to Vrindavan and have done Govardhan Parikrama, one of the places towards the very end when your feet are really beat, that you'll stop and feel relief because it's a long stretch before you get there. Uddhavakund. And at Uddhavakund, the story that's depicted behind the deities and is narrated by your tour guide, and if they don't know, the Pujari will say it in Hindi, that the great-grandson of Krishna brought the Gopis there. They wanted to see the place of Krishna's pastimes. So he brought them. And when he brought them, the Gopīs, the queens were having ecstatic kirtan in anticipation of seeing the places of Krishna's pastimes. And when their kirtan got going, it got going and going and going, and Narada Muni and many others came, and Uddhava, who had taken the form of a blade of grass at that location, manifested his Uddhava form, and he joined their kirtan at that Uddhava Kund place, right by the side of Govardhan Hill. So that's another version. But here it's being expressed. This is now the BBT publication, saying that Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur says, that some commentators say, that when Arjuna was escorting the queens and was stopped by cowherd boys, it was Krishna expanded as cowherd boys. And he wanted to take, because he knew, Krishna knew that they had heard from Uddhava and they wanted to experience the dust of Vraja where Krishna had walked. So he took them there in a very interesting way. So back to the text. The 16,100 queens, or 16,099 plus Rohini, desired, as it says here, to access that which the young Gopīs of Vraja, or the cowherd boys of Vraja, or even the Aborigine Pulinda women desire. That there's not, I've tried to find out what this reference to Aborigine Pulinda women is all about, because I don't find it. So apparently, in addition to the Gopas and Gopīs, there were forest-dwelling people. That's what Pulinda means. They're forest dwellers or Aborigine people or like that. And amongst them, there were also women, and they somehow got Krishna's mercy, at least the dust where Krishna was walking as he was herding the cows in the forest. So all of that. Now back to text 8 from this chapter 35, text 8 and 9. This is Jiva Goswami writing, commenting on that verse from chapter 83. It's the very last verse of the chapter, by the way. Lakshmi is better than all women. How will you attain what she attains? He is attained by greatness of prema, not by greatness of being a woman or anything else. It has previously been said the Pulinda women had their desire fulfilled. And he makes reference to chapter 21 of Canto 10, where it says that the Pulinda women had their desires fulfilled. And the desire is just the dust from Krishna's feet as he's herding the cows in the forest. The women of Vraja, the Pulindas, the trees and creepers, and the cowherds all desire the touch of his feet. The degree of prema is from superior, that's the women of Vraja, to lesser. The women of Vraja desire that touch, what to speak of the Pulindas. The creepers, Virudha, and the best of plants, Trina, that's straw, because of having intimate contact with him when he herds the cows. What can be said? They all, female gender, desire that touch. The cowherds, the males, desire the touch of his feet in order to massage them. They desire the touch of the feet of Kṛṣṇa, who spreads everywhere by his power, Mahatmanaha, and herds the cows by his mercy. Sridhar Swami says that verse 41, which we didn't read. In answer to the question, since you household women enjoy all wealth, why do you desire him? They have desire for nothing but him. In verse 42 is in answer to the question, why do you desire the dust from his feet? If you do not desire anything else, why do you also desire the dust? Paragraph. Another meaning is as follows, concerning verse 41, Shruti, specifically Taittiriya Upanishad, speaks of various degrees of happiness, starting with that of humans. If human happiness is multiplied 10,000 times, it is the happiness of Brahma. This is the highest material happiness. The happiness of Parabrahman is unlimited. Anantyam. From Taittiriya Upanishad, Yato vacho nivartante. Words cannot describe it. What then to speak of the happiness of samipya? Who knows the meaning of samipya? It's one of the four kinds of Vaishnava liberation. But you're saying anything different?
No,
Same thing. Anyone else? Samipya. Any other words that you have to describe it? Because I have some other words to describe it. Close association. Equal association. This is multiple places. It's equal association with the Lord. Like Sharsti is equal opulences, and Samipya is equal association. Opulences like the Lord, association, close association with the Lord. So what then to speak of the happiness of Samipya, the husband of Lakshmi? We do not desire any of those things, even secondarily. We do not want them as secondary goals. Oh? Then what do you desire to attain more than that? We desire to carry that dust of his feet on our heads. We take him as our husband. Moreover, we desire those feet possessing the fragrance of Lakshmi's kumkum. Oh, but if you have given up the foot of the husband of Lakshmi, perfumed with her kumkum, if Shri means Rukmini, you have attained that foot dust with her kumkum. To make this understood, they speak the present tense, the present verse. Quote, text chapter 21, reference. The Aborigine women of Vrindavan area become disturbed by lust when they see that the grass is marked with reddish kumkum powder, endowed with the color of Krishna's lotus feet. This powder originally decorated the breasts of his beloveds, and when the Aborigine women smear it on their faces and their breasts, they feel fully satisfied and give up all their anxiety. 10:21:17. According to these words, the queens desire what the women of Vraja desire. The present tense is used to show continuous desire. In listing the Pulinda women and others, the queens desire to state their qualification for attaining that dust. They desired what the plants obtained. And from chapter 12 of Canto 11, this is Uddhava Gita, Krishna to Uddhava. The inhabitants of Vrindavan, including the Gopis, cows, unmoving creatures, such as the twin Arjuna trees, animals, living entities with stunted consciousness, such as bushes and thickets, and snakes, such as Kaliya, all achieve the perfection of life by unalloyed love for me, and thus very easily achieved me. This is the uniqueness of residents of Vrindavan, and through the association of the residents of Vrindavan, ultimate perfection. Paragraph. Some of the cowherds herding the cows were Priya Sakas, so it's mentioned that they also received the same benediction. So the Priya Sakas, I'll just read straight, cut and paste from our books. The more confident, this is Nectar of Devotion. No, maybe it's Chaitanya. Anyway, Chaitanya Charitamrita. The more confidential friends, are called Priya Sakas and are almost Krishna's age. Because of their very confidential friendship, their behavior is only on the basis of pure friendship. It means it's not mixed with any other thing. The behavior of other friends is on the ground of paternal love or servitude, but the basic principle of the confidential friends is simply friendship on an equal level. Some confidential friends are as follows: Sridham, Sudama, Dama, Vasudama, Kinkini, Stoka Krishna, Angshu, Bhadrasena, Vilasi, Pundarika, Vitanka, and Kalavinka. That's it. So they were getting the same benefit that the gopis were getting, but in descending order from the gopis. They got that association of Krishna's feet, at least by massaging him and getting the dust from his feet as he was herding the cows. Thus, though they also took pleasure in such dust, they were unqualified, since they were males. Thus, they are placed last in the list. That is the meaning. She who is famous as Lakshmi desired this also, but she did not attain it. The wives of Kaliya said, quote, Canto 10, Chapter 16, this is the Kaliya Leela chapter. "O Lord, we do not know how the serpent Kaliya has attained this great opportunity of being touched by the dust of your lotus feet. For this end, the goddess of fortune performed austerities for centuries, giving up all other desires and taking austere vows." So the gopis were very special. And the queens were hankering for what they received, etc. Rukmini, who is famous as Shri, also did not attain it, since she was not a woman of Vraja, belonging to a different time and place. The desire of Lakshmi is also stated in the following. This is chapter 47. This is Uddhava's visit to Vrindavan. Quote, "The gopis received benedictions from the Lord that neither Lakshmi nor the most beautiful dancers in the heavenly planets could attain. In the rasa dance, the Lord showed his favor to the most fortunate gopis by placing his arms on their shoulders and dancing with each of them individually. No one can compare with the gopis who received the causeless mercy of the Lord." Paragraph. It is said that the women of Vraja were more qualified than Rukmini. In the Skanda Purana, it is said, quote, "Rukmini is in Dwaraka what Radha is in the forest of Vrindavan." Now that's Skanda Purana, and it's being quoted here by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, but just for our edification, this is from Gopal Champu. The 8 principal gopis had their 8 principal wives of Kṛṣṇa? That's a long story. Chandravali, she wasn't one of the 8 principal gopis, she was the right-wing gopi, was Rukmini. Radha was Satyabhama. Vishaka was Kalindi. Lalita was Jambavati. Shama was Lakshmana. Shaibya was Mitravinda. And Bhadravali was Bhadra. Padma was Satya. They were almost equivalent in nature. This is Jiva Goswami. Though they were of the same nature, they were not exactly equal in giving happiness to Kṛṣṇa. As rubbing oil on the feet soothes the eyes. I don't know about that one. Maybe Ayurveda people know about that one. So when he enjoyed with the queens, the gopis felt some relief because of some identity. In this way, they could pass the time without going insane. And to make things more complicated, Rupa Goswami describes in Vidagdha Madhava, and Shivaram Swami has made a very readable rendering of this, what I'm about to say. We actually discussed it during the Dwarka Yatra. And so if you want to hear some detail about what I'm just going to quickly summarize, you can go listen to or view the Dwarka Yatra topic on this. The Vidagdha Madhava explains how after Kṛṣṇa left Dwarka, after Kṛṣṇa left Vrindavan, the gopis that wanted Kṛṣṇa as their husband, there was some very involved, mysterious, complicated arrangement that they all became queens. And Chandravali is the first one, and it's how it's explained how it happened. Very involved. And Satyabhama was Radha. It's like really very, very intricate. She was feeling such separation that she just couldn't stand maintaining her body, and she entered into the river Jamuna. The sun god came because she was a worshipper of the sun god. The sun god came and lifted her and took her under his care. And then later the sun god made an arrangement for her to descend in Dwarka. It's like really interesting, very, very interesting. How Rupa Goswami could understand all this, God only knows. But there's details and details and details. Very interesting. And they all ended up becoming. So these princesses, it was understood publicly that the princesses were daughters of kings, which is said right there in the Bhagavatam. That's who they were. They said it. We were daughters of kings. We were princesses that were defeated by Bhaumasura's conquest of earth, and he put them in prison. Rupa Goswami describes that was the common understanding, and even they had that understanding, but in actuality it was different. Yogamaya has a way of bewildering people, and Rupa Goswami then reveals the real deal. So it's very interesting. I invite you to listen or read or whatever you like, if you want to understand it more completely. But so the main point here is that the Gopis had their counterpart or their expansion or whatever become queens in Dwarka. And when the queens were with Kṛṣṇa, it is likened to placing Ayurvedic oil on your feet and your eyes become soothed. It's not the same, but it helps. So because they had some connection with the Gopis felt some relief, and that way they were able to maintain their lives. Next, this is a Gautamiya Tantra quote. The goddess Radharani is the direct counterpart of Kṛṣṇa. She is the embodiment of all the goddesses of fortune. She possesses all attractiveness to attract the Lord. Brihat Gautamiya Tantra also says that Radha is the supreme amongst all the gopis and reigns as Shri. The gopis also describe Radha in this way. Canto 10, Chapter 30. Certainly this particular gopi has perfectly worshipped the all-powerful Govinda, since he was so pleased with her that he abandoned the rest of us and brought her to a secluded place. This is that famous phrase, Anya aradito nunam Bhagavan Harir Ishvara. Ananya means by her, and aradita doesn't say her name, but one who perfectly worshipped. Aradita, that's Radha, without using her name. Here's the translation. O friend, wife of the deer, has Achyuta been here with his beloved, bringing great joy to your eyes? Indeed, blowing this way is the fragrance of his garland of kunda flowers, which was smeared with the kumkum from the breasts of his girlfriend when he embraced her. The Gopis Krishna. Thus the queens desire what the Gopis desired. The queens desired that there would be an appearance of his feet, perfumed with kumkum, with an appearance of similar prema. Not only did they desire the foot dust, but they desired a similar touch of his feet. We desire the touch of his feet with its dust. There is non-difference of the two, since both have unfailing results. Last, Krishna's nature is to have the best manifestation, Atmanaha, of beauty, and other qualities which spread everywhere, Maha. And Shukadeva Goswami writes, in the midst of the dancing gopis, Krishna appeared most brilliant, like an exquisite sapphire in the midst of golden ornaments. Pretty elevated stuff, huh? Okay, now we're going to go to one more reference. This is Canto 11, Chapter 2. Canto 11, Chapter 2, that's the Nava-yogendras, 9 of the 100 sons of Rishabdev, the Nava-yogendras, and they're having conversation with King Nimi. And so this is 11.245, and Sri Hari speaks, or Havi, Havi said, quote, the most advanced devotee sees the Supreme Lord, one's object of worship, within everything, and sees everything in the Supreme Lord. This double talk. He's in everything and everything's in him. And so here's commentary by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. One should see the presence, or bhavam, of the Lord, who is one's atmanaha, object of worship in all things. When Hiranyakashipu asked, "Where is your Lord?" Prahlad said, "He is everywhere. One can see the Lord even in a pillar." In this way, he saw his worshipable Lord. Similarly, one should see all living beings in the Lord, Atmani, the object of one's worship, just as Yashoda saw all beings in the belly of Kṛṣṇa. There is another meaning. One should see all beings as having prema for the Lord, absorbed in the Lord who appears in their minds. This shown by the prema of the Gopīs and the queens. This was shown by the prema of the Gopīs and the queens of Dwarka. Now, making reference to our verse for this midday, text 9, chapter 35. The trees and creepers in the forest respond to hearing Krishna's flute by becoming so luxuriant with fruits and flowers that they seem to be manifesting Lord Vishnu within their hearts. As their branches bend low with the weight, the filaments on their trunks and vines stand erect out of the ecstasy of love of God, and both the trees and the creepers pour down a rain of sweet sap. And there's a quote from chapter 21 of Canto 10. When the rivers hear the flute song of Kṛṣṇa, their minds begin to desire him, the rivers. And thus the flow of their currents is broken, and their waters are agitated, moving around in whirlpools. Then, with the arms of their waves, the rivers embrace Murari's lotus feet and, holding on to them, present offerings of lotus flowers. And another reference is from Canto 10, chapter 90. Chapter 90 is the last chapter of Canto 10. And the scene is Dwarka. And Kṛṣṇa is enjoying with his queens in Dwarka, having sporting pastimes in lakes. And it says, I'll read, sometimes after playing with the Lord in the water, they would address various creatures, declaring their great attachment to Sri Kṛṣṇa on the pretext of commiserating with these creatures. So we're going to hear two of them. It also relates to the Queen's ecstatic prayers. It also relates, this chapter 90, relates the Queen's ecstatic prayers in the mood of intense separation from him. So here's the chapter 90, text 15 quote. After bathing with Kṛṣṇa in lakes, they turn to the Kurari bird. "Oh, Kurari bird, you are lamenting. Now it is night, and somewhere in this world the Supreme Lord is asleep in a hidden place. But you are awake, O friend, unable to fall asleep. Is it that, like us, you have had your heart pierced to the core by the lotus-eyed Lord's munificent, playful, smiling glances?" Then again, "O magnanimous mountain, you neither move nor speak. You must be pondering some matter of great importance. Or do you, like us, desire to hold on your breasts the feet of Vasudev's darling son? And one should contemplate the mood of the Lord within oneself as being present in all living entities. Sanatana Goswami says this meaning is approved by past authorities. So this is Vishwanath commenting on this verse by Sri Havi about seeing the Lord within everything and everything within the Lord. And he is confirming that this following understanding is how we should understand what they're saying. One should contemplate the mood of the Lord within oneself as being present in all living entities. One should see in this way. This implies that one must gain qualification for seeing rather than being able to see like this at all times. Become qualified before you can get it together to see this way. However, this does not apply to Narada, Vyasa, and Shukadev. They do not see the Lord at all times, everywhere, but this increases their desire for Him. When this longing to see the Lord increases further, then the devotees see the whole world as the Lord, based on the logic that a lusty man sees women everywhere, and according to the saying that one sees everyone like oneself, Atmavan Manyate Jagat, they see all beings as suffering from eagerness for prema. One should not explain that the verb to see here means to know, and that therefore the best devotee is he who knows that the Lord is everywhere and everything is in the Lord simply by scripture knowledge. Pretty far out, huh? Should I read it again? I want to read it again. Because this comes up from time to time. You know, how we, I remember hearing a class twice, and I asked Rabindra to, I asked his secretary to copy me with, the essence of, because he wrote something about this also. When he explains, Rabindra explained, when he was doing his PhD at Temple University in Philadelphia, he heard Srila Prabhupada say, a devotee doesn't see a tree, they see Kṛṣṇa there. So he was, a philosopher, PhD philosopher. Like, what does that mean? I look out the window and I'm seeing a tree, but you don't see a tree, you see Kṛṣṇa there. So what does that mean? You don't see the tree, you see Kṛṣṇa there. So he has a particular explanation, and here's another version of an explanation. Very nice. So it's in the very high philosophical section. These Navayogendras, they're of the caliber of Narada Muni. That is to say, they're not within any varna or ashram. They have powers whereby they can travel anywhere in the universe, and they don't even have a vina. They just, off they go. The Kumaras had a similar capacity. The Siddhas, they have a similar capacity. But at Siddhas, they have craft. And they travel on their vimanas wherever they want to go. And the Navayogendras don't even have a vimana. They just, off they go. So they came to a particular place where a very qualified person, King Nimi, was performing a karma kanda ritual. And just as the ritual was about to start, they just descended from the sky. And he stopped his sacrifice, stood up, folded palms, and offered prayers to them and asked them a whole bunch of questions. And this is chapter 2. It's like right away giving an answer to one of their questions. What's this proper consciousness? Seeing the Lord within everything and everything within the Lord. So how do you do that? So we're getting an explanation. So I'll just read this last paragraph again. Well, I'll read the two. One should contemplate the mood of the Lord within oneself as being present in all living entities. Sanatana Goswami says this meaning is approved by past authorities. One should see in this way. This implies that one must gain qualification for seeing rather than being able to see like this at all times. However, this does not apply to Narada, Vyasa, and Shukadev. They do not see the Lord at all times, everywhere, but this increases their desire for Him. When this longing to see the Lord increases further, then the devotees see the whole world as the Lord, based on the logic that a lusty man sees women everywhere. And according to the saying, and according to the saying that the one sees everyone else like oneself, Atmavan Manyate Jagat, they see all beings as suffering from eagerness for prema. One should not explain that the verb to see, quote, here means to know, and that therefore the best devotee is he who knows the Lord is in everything, and everything is in the Lord simply by scriptural knowledge. So that's it's a very elevated state, right? But that's kind of what we've been saying. Where's this train that we're getting on taking us? What does it look like when we get there? So initially then is the qualification. The qualification to be hankering in a way like the queens are hankering. Not complacent. I'm practicing bhakti and I'm going to go back to God, and so Hari Bol. I mean, that's not wrong, but it's not the goal. It's not the qualification that entitles one the special privilege of Krishna's association in the mood of the residents of Vrindavan. That's the gift that that's being extended to us by Lord Chaitanya and his associates. So, there's steps. Being attached to the practices of bhakti, knowing that it's purifying, and it'll draw us to Krishna. And when the drawing to Krishna matures, then there's the hankering to receive the mercy like these very elevated Vaishnavas have received mercy. And it's never at the point where Prabhupada spoke very strongly about people who would say, they see Krishna. Or, these, because you're all from India, the stories where my grandmother, she doesn't sleep at night. She goes into the deity room, and the deity comes off the altar and plays with my mother, and he plays a flute and she dances, and she plays her flute and he dances, and she's crying and, in ecstasy, and so it wakes everybody up, and we come out and the deity's back on the altar again, and anyway, those kind of stories. Prabhupada's statement, there was one Pandal program that I attended in Hyderabad, and one man came up to the microphone and started speaking like that. They'd have to stand in line to get their turn to say something, and he just went off and off. It was in English, so I could understand what he was saying. And Prabhupada interrupted him and said, Hey Radhe Brajadevi Ke Chalalite Hey Nanda Suna Sutta. So, the Gopi, the residents of Vrindavan, the 6 Goswamis, they never would say, I have seen Krishna. They would say they're always searching for Krishna. And it's not just out of humility or to teach us, that was their mood. like this description. The rivers, even when receiving the dust from Krishna's lotus feet, carried by favorable winds, they're never satisfied. They want more. So the anticipation of meeting Krishna may feel uncomfortable because you're anticipating, what it's like waiting for somebody and they're late, waiting for a bus, and it takes forever, and so on, and so when there's anticipation, time seems much longer, and when you're having fun, time passes very quickly. So we like to have fun. We don't like to have time pass slowly. But when you're anticipating, then it's like, there's a degree of discomfort, if not more than discomfort. But that anticipation is part of the mood of the Brijbasis. And always hankering, the Gopis weren't thinking, made it. We were able to dance with Krishna, job done. The next day, they're anticipating. And then hearing from Uddhava, the queens of Dwaraka, the lesser queens, using this language, hearing from Uddhava the very special affection and anticipation of love of the residents of Vrindavan, the Gopis, the Priya Sakhas, and the rivers. So that the queens are hankering for that also, and even Lord Brahma, hankering to become. So we're hearing these things, and it's going to strike our heart in different ways depending upon our spiritual purification and elevation. But the stimulation is there for that kind of love, the ecstatic love. And it's that anticipation that's the qualification for seeing Krishna everywhere. Even in Palatine. Oh, wait a minute, he's in Vrindavan. He's not here. But how can one... Then if we're able to... If one comes to that stage, like Prabhupada, somebody asked, if Prabhupada was in that stage, then why did he want to be in Vrindavan and to leave his body? He could just be anywhere, and Krishna's everywhere. So it's the same, and it's also not the same, because Vrindavan is Krishna's place. And when Krishna went to Vrindavan from Gokula, he went because he has eternal associates there. And he was enlivened to be with them, and they were enlivened to be with him. And that was his home. That's his eternal abode. So he's wherever Krishna is, that's Krishna's abode. But then there's this very special place, Vrindavan. So our heart goes to Vrindavan. Prabhupada's heart was in Vrindavan. Although wherever he went, there was Vrindavan. Same and different simultaneously. So we want to be with Krishna, or that desire to be with Krishna is innate or latent within the heart of every living being, regardless of life form, regardless of culture or color or culture or nationality or whatever age, whatever yuga it is. It's within the heart of every living being, and to awaken that is the most precious thing. And somehow we stumbled on the process to awaken that. So let's see if there's some discussion or any thoughts on what we're hearing.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Srila Prabhupada, or we are advised to be in Goshti Anandi.
Mm-hmm.
And my question is that to reach that stage, do we have to switch to Bhajananandi or remain in Goshti Anandi?
Well, what did Prabhupada do? What did Bhaktisiddhanta do?
Yeah,
To the end.
preaching, yes.
That is to say, like Krishna says to Arjuna, you want to leave the battlefield and you're thinking, and I'm telling you don't have the qualification, then you're thinking, so if you get the qualification, then you can leave the battlefield. No, when you have that qualification, you show by example. And Prabhupada was not just, certainly he was teaching, by example he was teaching, but that was his mood. That's the mood of compassion of Krishna and Lord Chaitanya. At whatever the risk, I mean, certain boundaries of risk. We don't go on international flights to do preaching somewhere in the present circumstance. If there's some emergency, the emergency is emergency. But so we make consideration of time, place, and circumstance, but extending mercy, that was our founder Acharya, and he was teaching us by his example. Right to the very end. Right to the very end. Now, it doesn't mean if somebody does at a certain, like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, at a certain stage of his life, he locked himself in seclusion. But then he came out of seclusion and continued preaching. So, you know, the compassionate, there are different modes of the personality of Godhead. Karuna is what we've been reading. What's one of them? Just great compassion. And there's others. So Vaishnavas may have different moods, but followers of Lord Chaitanya are very compassionate by nature. We're followers of him. To receive that mercy, the fullness of his mercy, we have to be in the mood of extending it. It helps us become qualified to receive it. Okay.
Thank you, Maharaj. That question often comes up in Bhakti Shastri classes.
Really?
Like in Ishopanishad, the last.
Well, but we look at the example, and that tells us what direction to move in. How do you apply this teaching in our practical life? We look at the example. The acharyas have the example. Okay.
My question is maybe not very high level.
That's okay.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj, you mentioned about the like the 8 principal gopis as well as the other gopis who were counterparts of the queens who were counterparts of the gopis.
Yes.
So how do we understand that they were present in
Can you hold
Vraja?
the microphone a little closer to your mouth? Because he's fiddling with the volume.
How do we understand that? So they were present in Vraja and also in Dwarka?
Why not?
So they expand.
Yeah, why not?
One more question, which is
Let me elaborate on that why not answer. I'll give 2 references. They're recent discoveries from my, just going into these topics. Brihat Bhagavatamrita. Your husband can remind me, and I'll send you the references. So you don't have to write them down. You can pay attention. In Brihat Bhagavatamrita, Gopakumar is surprised when he sees Narada Muni. You're here, and you're there, and you're there, and how to understand this? And Narada says, I've explained this to you before, but I don't mind, I'll explain it again. Those of us who are intimate associates of the Supreme Lord, by his arrangement, we have our expansions in multiple places. Two other examples. One other example is when we heard about Canto 10, Chapter 8, that this very special position of Nanda and Yashoda, And then Maharaj Parikshit says, wow, what did they do in their previous lives to get this position? To have such love for Krishna. Remember that? And the answer was Drona and Dara. Now, who are Drona and Dara anyways? Then the detail is, the Supreme Lord requested the eternal Nanda and Yashoda to expand themselves as angsas, or partial expansions, and to reside in the heavenly realm. So they're in both realms. And then when it was time for Krishna's advent in a particular cycle of yugas, they had this intense desire to have a child, the son of the person, their son would be the personality of Godhead. Brahma said, no problem. Very nice. So they entered into the body of Nanda and Jasoda. And then afterwards they returned to their position. But they had that bhava because they were expansions of Nanda and Jasoda. And here's another, just to give examples of the principle. When Krishna performs his pastimes, they're eternal. So Krishna's birth and Krishna's birth and Krishna's birth in different universes. And the battle of Kurukshetra, and the battle of Kurukshetra, and the battle of Kurukshetra, etc., etc. So Giriraj Maharaj asked Prabhupada, does that mean there's multiple Arjunas? Because wherever there's Krishna, there's Arjuna. And he said, yes. I mean, it wasn't so point blank like that, but yes. Associates of the Supreme Lord can expand themselves. It doesn't give the technology of how that happens. How can a jiva have multiple jivas? One jiva. But they can expand themselves somehow. For the service, and Narada's point is for the service to the Supreme Lord, he makes these arrangements. So I would have to go back and look carefully. But the associates of Krishna and Braja, they're eternal associates. So there's their manifest pastimes, and then their unmanifest pastimes, aprakat. So they're eternally there. And in Mathura, they're eternally there. Vasudeva and Devaki are eternally there in Krishna Loka, and the associates of Krishna in Dwarka. But they have their counterparts. And, they don't leave over here and go over there, but they're expansions. Because they desired Krishna as their husband, and Krishna became their husband. He fulfilled their desire. Pure love, not just like, hey, wouldn't that be nice to be, but it was, a pure prema. And so Krishna fulfilled their desire in very interesting ways. Does that work?
So we say that
The spiritual technology. Yeah. Even material technology, is bewildering. What to speak of?
Yeah, it is bewildering for me. So when we say that we all have a swarupa, so
We all have what?
a swarup,
Spiritual form, right?
Spiritual form.
Yeah.
So once we attain the spiritual form, can we have
multiple, more than one? Well, Bhaktisiddhanta explains this in Brahma Samhita. The eternal abode of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is where? Goloka. His Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's abode, eternal abode, is Goloka. In many paintings, if you look closely at first canto cover paintings, the whirl of the lotus, that's Krishna Loka, shows Radha Krishna, and over there in the upper left corner is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates, because that's his abode, is in Krishna Loka. So those who are followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they become pure devotees. let's just take Rupa Goswami. Rupa Goswami is an associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and in Krishna Lila, he's Rupa Manjari. Simultaneously. So when someone, if you become, that wonderful day when you become a pure devotee of Krishna, as a follower of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you'll manifest a form with Lord Chaitanya's associates and Krishna's associates. Doesn't just give the technology, but that's what's explained. The bhava is similar or identical. The lila is different.
Thank you, Maharaj.
It's high technology. But that's, where the train is going. All aboard. And the conductor comes and let's see your ticket. They stop the trains in India. Till the end of July. At least. This isn't a good place to get on trains. The spiritual train's a good train. She's laughing like anything. Okay. Anyone else? Yes. Microphone up front here.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Actually, this question is asked by my niece.
By your niece?
Yeah.
How old is your niece?
7 years old.
7?
Yeah.
Okay.
And when we were discussing about Krishna's and her and his life and everything, he asked me why Krishna has created devils too. I mean, if he didn't create devils, then there is no, bad persons or anything. And I'm unable to explain that why.
Well, let me make sure I've understood what your 7-year-old niece wants to know. The really short is, why did Krishna create devils? And is the uncertainty he's good, so why did he create something bad? That's like the essence of the question?
Yes.
Okay. It depends on the sensibility. So how to answer this to a 7-year-old. Ask her questions that help her understand that she has free will. Like, do you brush your teeth every morning? Well, of course I brush my teeth every morning. And why do you brush your teeth every morning? Because it's, you brush your teeth every morning. It's oral hygiene, whatever she might say. So do you think there's some people in the world that don't brush their teeth every morning? Every morning. Some people? Must be. So, they have free will. You're choosing. You don't have to. You could not brush your teeth every morning. But you're choosing because it's good for you. But there's the option to say no. That's free will. That's what the meaning of free will is. So, if there's no free will, just imagine there's no such thing as free will, then there isn't love. It doesn't exist, because love is a free will choice. Because with free will choice, you can always say no. But if you have the option to say yes, and it's yes, then that's love. If you don't have the option, there's no love. So would you like a place where there's no love? So if there's free will, some people say no. Now what do you do with the people that say no? Well, they don't brush their teeth. And they have, health problems, at least, dental problems. Then some people say no to Kṛṣṇa. So what happens to those? The soul is eternal. They have something. He reciprocates with their saying no. He gives them a situation where they can say no a whole lot. like no with a big exclamation point. That's what those people are. Then he doesn't want that any more than, someone's not brushing their teeth is not something a well-wisher would want. So they made that choice. It's not like that's what Kṛṣṇa wants, but he's giving them their free will, because if he didn't, there wouldn't be love. There is love. So there has to be free will. People can say no. He doesn't create it. He just there's free will. That's because we're part of the Supreme who has unlimited free will. So some people can say no. And there they go, doing bad stuff. Now, better to ask, what does Kṛṣṇa want me to do about those people that do bad stuff? That's a better question. And you pray for them, and you try to remind them of that. See if we can make the good choice instead of the mistaken choice. But you don't take away their free will. You can't do that anyways. That's what we do. We try to say yes instead of no, and people that are saying no, help them understand that's not a good choice. And invite them to, take prasadam. and find spiritual happiness instead of whatever it is, the other thing that they're looking for.
I have also one more question.
Yeah.
As Prabhupada said, we are part and parcel of God. Then why we have mode of passion and mode of ignorance in us, in ourselves?
That's for the people that say no.
Okay. It's also free will.
Yeah.
Kṛṣṇa has given.
So supposing you say no, then what's it look like when you say no? Well, there's variety over there. And there's 3 modes, not just 2. Yeah. And even the mode of goodness, it's also mixed. So there's nothing pure over there. That's for the people that say no. What about the people that say yes? There's no modes. It's for the people that give them a place to hang out and say no. The place where the modes of nature and karma and all that stuff. That's the say no people. And that's like a vast minority. The majority say yes, and they don't have the modes. Ignorance and passion. And material goodness. It's gone. So we get those because we're saying no. And, good is good, but good is still mixed. And still another birth, and still another, sometimes goodness isn't prevailing, and sometimes the other modes are prevailing, because that's what happens when you say no. And it's not a good program. So let's delete that program from our hard drive and put on another program. Not so easy, just like delete a program. It's not mechanical. It's devotional. It takes some cultivation to go there, to the place where people say yes. The good news is, when we get there, everyone's saying yes. There's no more, maybe, or sometimes. It's pure. But that's the ticket when the conductor comes along and says, "Okay, you're on the Vaikuntha Express. Let's see your ticket." I lost it. Okay. It's okay? Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay, Hare Kṛṣṇa. There's back here.
Guru Maharaj, I have 2 clarifications, or 2, correct me if I'm wrong, kind of questions based on my understanding. One is regarding Prabhupada going back to Vrindavan. So is my understanding correct? Like Yudhishthir Maharaj glorifies Uncle Vidura when he comes back from the holy places, that, you know, that shloka, Bhavad Vida Bhagavatas Tirthi Bhutasvayam.
Yeah.
So wherever the great souls are, that is Vrindavan. So Prabhupada, wherever he was, that was Vrindavan. But there is an extra flavor when you know, he's present in Vrindavan.
Yeah.
Like, I was thinking, like there are devotees online listening to your lecture.
Yeah.
They get the same purification, and we are here with you. Get the, so that's
It's not exactly one-to-one correlation, but I get the picture.
and my second question is based on yesterday's lecture evening. You were explaining about the relationship between the owner of the car and the chauffeur.
Yeah.
That due to the prolonged association, there is some relationship that automatically develops. Some sweetness in that relationship.
Normally and naturally, not always. Sometimes there's animosity and
Right. Yeah.
envy and stuff.
Yes. For a obedient chauffeur, there is normally,
Yes.
naturally something develops. So I was relating that with me, that or us, that with prolonged proper association with Srimad Bhagavatam, that Kṛṣṇa is none other than a literary form of Bhagavatam is literary form of Kṛṣṇa. So with proper association with Srimad Bhagavatam, a prolonged association for some time, we also get that relationship, some sweetness from Kṛṣṇa.
Yeah.
And that is the way we can associate
Yes.
with.
And, you know, an obstacle for those who are householders is time, because so much time has to go into so many other things. However, it would be artificial to not act according to one's psychophysical nature and just like jump ship or something and artificially go to a different ashram because it's not suited for the psychophysical nature. So one's nature also needs to be purified and elevated. That is by dedicating those things to Krishna service. So it gives the practical along with the purification part. You know, there's a challenge any way you cut the pie. Whatever your nature is, there's challenges. And it's so. The regular immersion in the sound of Srimad Bhagavatam and the holy name, that's our medicine. It'll make us well. As much as we can, we do that. Okay? And then apply it.
Yes, Guru Maharaj. And then another thing is, while reading Srimad Bhagavatam, some of the context, some of the pastimes are very nice. Prabhupada purports are, you know, I can relate to that, I can understand. But some of them are really high, you know, the whole concept, creation and secondary creation, that this is so high. Sometimes it is like very difficult to understand. But is it okay to just read it and just move on?
Yeah. At some point, perhaps, you'll have a desire, or any one of us in the room will have a desire, to go over it again and go over it again and go over it again and understand more deeply this creation and subcreation. So I kind of went through that in the past, 9 months, and it's really far out. But it's purifying. Another time we'll go into that. Somebody sent me a question from the 3rd canto where it says that the trees are the demigods for something in that section of the subcreation. And that was pretty puzzling. So I consulted somebody that has studied it very deeply, and it's, my reply to that somebody was, I'm going to have to read it several times to digest what you're saying. But the position has a lot to do with different than, looking out the window and seeing trees. How do we see the universal form? Because that's part of what we find in Canto 2, Chapter 1. The mountains and the hills and the rivers and the trees and the this and the that. That's the universal form. And where does the universal form fit in with? It's seeing the universe in where we're situated in a different way than our three-dimensional space and our sense perception, because we rely on both of them. And that's not the Vedic model. So how to approach the Vedic model? And so it takes some very serious paradigm adjustments to using the modern expression, think out of the box. Think in different orientation than what we're accustomed to. So at some point, yes, for now, just read over it, and that I'm getting purified somehow. I don't know how. Sometime you'll come back, and I've been asked by two devotees to make a presentation on the universal form, like explain it, and I'm reluctant to do it because it's I'll lose certain people in the audience, like your good wife. Woo! I'm not sure how to do it so that it's on the one hand precise and the other hand digestible. And so just read Prabhupada's book, because that's the digestible form, and then you start going into it more deeply, and it gets more precise. It's not that anything Prabhupada has written is off the mark. It's just not all the explanation, clarification is there. And one of the things, there's several, but one of the things that's inspired this is the TOVP is coming up. And, people are going to see the TOVP and the exhibits of the TOVP and start, what to speak of the Western audience or the other Indian audiences, even the devotee audience, are going to be scratching their heads. Like, huh? And it's, there's 3 cantos that cover it. Canto 2, Canto 3, Canto 5 in detail. And there it is, 3D. The universe. Without an effort, without a plan, it's not part of their plan, at least in the planetarium, to explain Western science talks like this, or Western cosmology talks like this, and this one talks like that, and here's how the two correspond. They're just showing the Vedic model. There may be some exhibits to show some correlation, and there's, even within the Vedic model, it's not going to be, there will be people that will say that's not what the Vedic model is, and scholars have to disagree with other people. That's their program. So it's been, anyway, it's an important topic. And I've said this before, but one of the phrases of Sadhuputta that gets me is, the way you view the world has a profound effect on how you view yourself. And the way that we view the world by, modern science is mechanistic and atheistic. and limited and bound to the senses in three-dimensional space. And that's not the Vedic picture of how we see ourselves in the world that we're in. So that's a long answer to, just keep reading, and at a certain point you'll circle around and say, wait a minute, I want to get my hands on this a little bit better. Okay, so we have online questions. We're running out of time. Maybe we ran out of time. Okay, good. Anyone else in the room? Something? You're good. You confused? A little bit? Any clarification on any topic? Okay. You're good? You have
Just one comment. I'm just looking forward for the Uddhav Gita.
Uddhava Gita. Me too. But so far, this chapter 35, we're 1/3 through. And then comes 36. But that's the morning class, excuse me. That's the morning class. Anyway. This pandemic seems like it's going to last for quite a while, so it's going to be more of the same for quite a while. Look like.
If the pandemic ends, then
Well, my activities are going to change. I don't know if I'm going to be doing this morning and evening classes the way it's been going on. I haven't given too much thought about what's look in the crystal ball, what's the future look like, because it's too unpredictable. I spent some time this morning with Prakash, who you regularly, he attends classes, but it's now morning time for him in Singapore, about the Labor Day weekend with students, and what we may do is a combined social distanced kind of thing for attendees, and to the so some in person, some remote. That's as far as I got. Labor Day weekend. July and August, and who knows? The idea that July and August may change because of so many crazy things. Very unpredictable. And then colleges, whether colleges will be open, what that's going to be like if they open. Because that's September for me. When it's non-pandemic, is go to colleges. I don't know what it's going to be like. Srila Prabhupada ki.